Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast. Here is your host.
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. I'm Rick Bucher. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report or on Twitter at Rick Bucher. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. If you enjoyed the show, please drop us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Screenshot your review and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, and you'll be entered for a chance to win some swag from myself or Ryan Hollins, who's here with me on Thursdays and Fridays, or Will Blackman, who's here on Mondays and Tuesdays. Now, for those of you who follow the show, you know that on Wednesdays I normally have a special guest. Wendell Carter Jr., Jason Kidd, Marshawn Brooks, Nick Stauskas, any number of guys have joined us here. And today is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to have a special guest because I have a few things that I need to get off my chest. We're going to talk about the Chicago Bulls under their new coach, Jim Boylen. We're going to talk about the Clippers and why every writer in America, every sports writer in America should be thanking them. And we're going to talk about the last meeting between LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and the storyline that I wish had been covered but was not. But we start with the Chicago Bulls and Jim Boylen replacing Fred Hoiberg exactly 4 games ago. It almost feels like 4 years. It's been an awful lot that's happened. But the bottom line is they had a historically lopsided loss to the Boston Celtics. They had a player meeting and what appeared to be potentially a revolt by the players in terms of showing up for practice. And now they're trying to get themselves together. But what has happened with them is not as big to me as the reaction to what has happened with them. Here are some of the headlines that I've read. Chicago Bulls are a mess under Jim Boylen. Bulls rudely mocked for Jim Boylen's practice schedule. And from the New York Times, if Jim Boylen doesn't soften on Bulls, expect another change in Chicago. So this is the issue that I have. Chicago Bulls are a mess under Jim Boylen. No, they're not. 4 games in, if I need to remind you, they were 5-19 under Fred Hoiberg. And look, I don't know if Fred needed to go. I don't know if Jim Boylen is the answer. What I do know is that no one else knows either. As I said, they've played exactly 4 games under the new head coach. They played the Pacers in their first game and were competitive. Ended up losing, I believe it was 96-90. Second game, they upset the Oklahoma City Thunder. The third game, they play against the Boston Celtics and they get run. And then they lost their fourth game. After leading most of it, lost to the Sacramento Kings. Now, my issue is, and look, the Bulls have taken, unfortunately for them, there are no other news stories going on right now. So they've occupied this space. They've been the story that everyone is focused on because it's a dead period. There's nothing else going on. And this is hot, especially when you have the indication that players met or talked and didn't want to show up for practice. That's going to catch people's attention, no doubt about it. But look, as I said, they were 5-19. Yes, they got blown out by the Boston Celtics. Now, in that New York Times piece by my friend Mark Stein, he also writes that those players were convinced they should be granted a day off in spite of the embarrassing no-show against the Celtics that matched the most one-sided home loss in league history because they also played Friday night, upsetting Oklahoma City. First of all, the lopsided loss to the Celtics. Let's be clear in terms of what happened. Not one starter played more than 20 minutes. Jim, for whatever reason, didn't like the way they were playing, and I believe Boston came out of the gates, the 17-0 start, and he was substituting the starters en masse, all 5, did it twice, and really didn't play them in the second half. No starter played more than 20 minutes. So let's put an asterisk on the final score. Jim, for whatever reason, was trying to make a point, and it wasn't received well. And because he'd already had 2.5 hour practice, the concern by the players was, okay, we just played back-to-backs. We just got embarrassed, and now we got another 2.5 hour practice coming our way. And let me put you in the minds of the players when it comes to this. It's not that they were going to practice the next day. It was that they got blown out and they weren't allowed to compete in that game. So they get embarrassed, and now you're going to run them like hell the next day. That's going to create an issue when you're a brand new head coach. It just is. And we'll get to the oversight that I believe that Jim had in how he's handled this. Because when you move from assistant coach to head coach, the relationships change. You may have engendered trust and you may have had relationships and felt good about where you were with the players, but when you become the head coach, things change. You have a different authority. You're not a confidant now. You're not the good cop to what is usually the bad cop as the head coach. But whatever you say as an assistant coach, it doesn't carry the same weight. Now as a head coach, it carries a completely different weight. And Jim came in like swinging a sledgehammer. I dare say he wasn't swinging that same sledgehammer as an assistant coach. Now, this is what Boylen did not understand that Luke Walton did when he took over for Steve Kerr at the start of the 2015-16 season. Luke knew that the relationships that he had with the players were as an assistant coach. And so as a result, he didn't hammer them. And yes, they ended up winning 73. They went 73-9, set a record, single season record for wins. Won 16 in a row to start the season. So you're saying, well, he didn't have to swing a hammer. Well, assistant coach Ron Adams, in the midst of that, he and I talked, and he was not happy with the slippage of the team. Luke wasn't pushing them. And based on the wins, they didn't need it. But when you're a champion, you don't go by the scoreboard. Sure, they had enough talent. They're going to win games. It's how you play. And Ron was not happy with the way they were playing, but he also knew that Luke knew that he was going to go back to being an assistant coach. And he couldn't well become the head coach and become a different guy and then go back to being the assistant coach and being the original guy. Now, Boylen's in a different situation because he's not looking to go back. He wants to be the head coach, and he wants to show everyone that he's capable of being a head coach in the NBA. I don't know if he is or he isn't. Certainly not going to judge him to this point, in spite of the fact that he's had clearly some missteps. But nonetheless, this is the mistake that he made. He assumed that his relationship with the players as an assistant coach would transfer with him. He didn't recognize that if you become a different guy as the head coach, then they're going to wonder exactly, who are you? They're going to be confused. And that's not a good place to be. Now, need I also remind everyone, and I did it once already, but he's taken over a team that was 5-19. If you weren't saying that they were a mess before this, then why are you saying it now? And I've even seen media who want to take this opportunity to go after John Paxson and Gar Forman. What? What, because you changed coaches in a rebuilding situation? Now you're going to question? Nobody was Need I take you back to the criticism that they got when they made the trade of Jimmy Butler and how they handled Jimmy Butler? They didn't know what they were doing. I heard a lot of the same criticism that I'm hearing now. They're a mess. They don't know what they're doing. Oh, but then turns out, and I said it at the time, not to blow my own horn, but I said I liked the trade on draft night. I liked the trade. I knew what Jimmy Butler was and how it wasn't a fit, and how signing him to a max deal and making him the guy you build around wasn't the direction they needed to go. And they got Chris Dunn. They got the pick that turned out to be Lauri Markkanen. They got Zach LaVine. Or shall we go to Zach LaVine's contract? And what a mistake that was, that they signed him to $86, $88 million. That's looking like a bargain now. So this is what I don't understand, honestly, about the media taking this opportunity again to immediately jump up and use the Bulls as a punching bag. You media who have been critical of the Bulls for the last year and a half, you have egg on your face. Maybe Boylen isn't a fit. Maybe he's overstepped. Maybe. But your track record's not too good right now. Your track record is actually worse than Boylen's is at 1-3. So, by the way, Fred and the Bulls suffered an equally big blowout loss to the defending champions, the Warriors, 149-124. It was at home. The difference being that no starter played less than 20 minutes. In the loss to the Celtics, who I think could be the next champions, no starter played more than 20 minutes. So we've already been through this. Stop throwing the darts. The Bulls deserve a little bit of leeway. to see where this ultimately goes. Certainly judging after 4 games and saying that they're a mess, no, they're not. I will say this, one last thing. This leadership committee that they've devised in order for the players, a very young team, to have a group that can come to Boylen with whatever their gripes are. I don't know if it's going to work. It seems very new age. But I would think that this is the kind of thing that, because it is new age, because it is advanced, because it's different, it's out of the box thinking, this could easily be embraced by the media. If it was happening with Daryl Morey or a few other GMs that are viewed as being progressive and out of the box thinkers, I could see where they'd be getting plaudits. But I haven't heard that. By the way, before we move on, here is Jim Boylen and the players talking about this new committee that is going to have the opportunity to speak their piece and make their feelings known to Jim.
I'm juiced, man. I'm jacked up about it.
Jim came up with it, and we all took a liking to it, so that we're all on the same page. The team will have, someone to go to or a group of people to go to if there's an issue. If it's the 15th dude on the bench or the main dude, it's everybody has a voice.
To me, that's what this level's all about. Ownership of the team, strong leadership, care factor, commitment. Those are not just words. Those are real things, and those are actionable words. I want the leadership group because they will have input onto what we do and how we operate.
We're putting it together within the team, and we're just trying to figure out, the right dudes to lead the team and who will be with us going forward. So I think that's the main thing. But I think it's a great thing, especially with a young team. It's not a dictatorship. It's not somebody we don't have a straight up old school vet on the team to where, like you say, Kevin Garnett, to where he's the exact leader.
We had a situation over the weekend that all could have been handled by a leadership group walking in my office saying, you know what, coach, this is how we feel today. What do you think? And that was the teaching moment. That was the moment we built on this morning.
All right, moving on to our second subject. Every writer in the country should be a Clippers fan. Every sports writer, anyway. Every NBA writer, or at least a Steve Ballmer fan, because while getting paid to write about the NBA is a shrinking field, Ballmer and the Clippers have introduced a whole new avenue, stories to tell free agents in order to get them to join the Clippers. That has been the story behind the hiring of Lee Jenkins, the Sports Illustrated senior writer, to the front office of the Clippers, is that he is supposedly helping them build their narrative and their case and researching as he would do in doing some of the great profiles that he did for Sports Illustrated and writing them. He is putting together the dossier in order to be able to approach Kawhi Leonard and or Kevin Durant and spin the tale as to why they should continue their careers with the Los Angeles Clippers. If I've been asked one question by scouts and executives in regard to Jenkins' hire, it's been, do you really think this will work? And what's interesting is, so the ones that ask it skeptically are generally the older scouts and executives. The younger ones actually applaud it. They think it's brilliant. If they were running a team, and most of these guys are kind of in entry-level spots, it's something that they would do. This reminds me of quite a few years ago, I did a presentation to all of the league's coaches about social media and the use of Twitter. And the interest versus skepticism broke along basically the same lines. Now, this was probably about a good 6 years ago now, and happened to be actually at the Clippers facility. And it was amazing, the reaction when I said, you guys should be on Twitter. This is a valuable tool. Oh, the roar in the room. I never expected that much pushback. And then I had the opportunity afterward. Actually, there was one older coach who said that he used Twitter and that he found it valuable. And that was Phil Jackson. Now, he liked it because he loved to go on social media and correct people about things that they thought were wrong. And that wasn't what I was suggesting would be the ideal use of it. But nonetheless, the support came from a very unexpected place. When I went around afterward and I was talking to some of the younger coaches and assistant coaches, they all told me, they didn't speak up when there's the back and forth went about what a bad idea it was, how it was outrageous that I was suggesting they should be on it. All of the younger guys were telling me, yeah, I'm on it, and I like it, and I can see how I would use it. And my point was that you guys, from the instant you're hired, you're auditioning for your next job. And you can't count on the team to present you in the light that you want to be presented. You need to create your own persona. And you need to do it in a smart, respectful way, but you should take that as an opportunity, not be fearful of it. And so this, I hope, is the same thing. I don't know where this goes, but I hope Lee is a wild success, because that can only raise the value of storytelling again. And after seeing the game taken over by an infatuation with numbers, as if they're somehow more trustworthy than actually watching someone or someone's play. And granted, maybe, to someone who doesn't know what they're seeing, numbers are more trustworthy. But it's good to see a form of belief and understanding athletes and what makes them tick being valued once again.
Take that for data.
All right, I want to get to my last topic, and that is the last meeting between LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. And I don't consider the pairing of LeBron and Dwayne Wade as some iconic duo. They weren't together long enough, and Dwayne Wade was at a point in his career where he was on the downward slide. LeBron got him for 1-2 more quality years, the last of them. So, and they just weren't together long enough. So I don't go there. Dwayne made a point of the three of them coming together as being, something that shifted something in the NBA. I would say all of the players that were free agents the summer of LeBron made something happen unique, in which it was superstar players taking control of their own careers and being willing to sacrifice a certain amount of financial security in order to do that. That was a change. That was a dramatic change. The power structure in the league shifted. It's now owners and superstar players. GMs and coaches are the ones that had their relative authority usurped by the way things went down. And maybe the symbol of it were the GMs and the coaches who had to traipse to Cleveland to meet with LeBron to try to convince him that they were the team that he should join. Other versions of that were done across the country with other free agents, superstar free agents that summer. But it did set a different tone, no doubt about it. Now, if there was anything that bothered me about the last meeting, it's the storyline that this last matchup earned LeBron lifetime bragging rights because it broke their 15-15 head-to-head record. And I'm thinking, come on, let's not be so, juvenile. Like, head-to-head matchups really matter. And they played it up. Of course they would. Why not? This really was sort of an exhibition for the two of them. But the storyline that I would have liked to have seen explored is that I don't believe LeBron would have ever become LeBron without Dwayne Wade. Because it took a special relationship and a special mutual respect for the way things unfolded with them. Because I was there when they played Dallas in the NBA Finals. And I was there with the series. The Heat had squeaked out. The heavily favored Heat had squeaked out a 2-point win in Game 3. They'd split the 2 games in Miami, which should have already been a wake-up call. And maybe for most of the Heat and Dwayne Wade, it was. But I'll never forget the practice after Game 3. And the entire team is lined up, ready to warm up. And Dwayne Wade has his shorts, the drawstring tied. He's booted and suited, as is everybody else. And LeBron comes running in, and Bosch, I believe, was a little ahead of him, but the two of them came in late. And LeBron was kind of goofing around, getting his shoes on. You could see the whole team waiting for him. And then finally, they kind of just shook their head, and they went and they warmed up without him, and they let him catch up. This is the NBA Finals. Now, granted, up 2-1 in the series, but it was a glimpse into who was the real leader of that team at the time and who had the necessary focus to win a championship. I was there courtside when I believe it was Game 5. It was in Dallas, I know that. And Sean Marion called LeBron James a bitch on the floor. I was courtside. I heard it. LeBron pretended as if he didn't. but I knew there was no way he didn't because I was further away than he was. And I saw LeBron crumble mightily. The stage was way too big for him. And we all saw the press conference afterward. And I mean, it was not a good look. And it took a tremendous amount of recovery to come back from that. Now, the thing that's not credited is the part that Dwayne Wade played in that. Because Dwayne Wade knew that he was right on that brink of falling off. He was without question the leader of the Miami Heat when LeBron James showed up. He needed LeBron James to be the leader, at least as far as the floor was concerned, for them to win. He understood that. He was at that stage. Now, I wasn't around that team in training camp. I don't know how much time LeBron and Dwayne spent together during the summer. But I know that during the season, Dwayne was constantly pressing LeBron to take a bigger and bigger role, to be more aggressive, and to be aggressive in the key moments of the game. Something that LeBron would sometimes do, but when he first got there, would clearly defer to Wade more often than not. And Wade was more than happy to carry that load because that's who he was. It was a natural thing for him. Now, ultimately, you saw what happened against the Oklahoma City Thunder. LeBron stepped up in some key moments. He became that guy. Developed a confidence in himself at the end of games they simply hadn't had before. And I just don't think LeBron becomes LeBron the champion without Dwayne Wade, encouraging him, pleading with him to be all that he was capable of being. And I can't imagine another player who would do that for LeBron. And I certainly don't know of another player that LeBron would have accepted and valued it from. So when I saw the time that they spent together and all the hoopla around them in this last meeting, you know what I just appreciated, enjoyed about it is that there's clearly a profound respect and love that they have for each other. And for good reason, because I don't think Dwayne gets a second and third ring without LeBron. And I'm not sure LeBron ever gets one without Dwayne Wade. I know for all that LeBron has accomplished, that seems rather extraordinary, but he was given the secret. He was given the code in Miami. And as far as being a leader of a championship team, Dwayne Wade was the one who guided him to that, who really pressured him to become that. Now, maybe he evolves, or maybe there's somebody else who takes him there. But there's no question that Wade was the one who led him to it. So that's what I appreciated the most. It is, I will say, watching it, and these guys have become so conditioned to the cameras and the stage that after the game, they see each other, they're on the court, and they gave themselves that movie distance between each other, looking at each other. Allowing the cameras and the crowd to kind of soak it all in. It was so theatrical. And I don't say that in a negative way. I mean, I imagine, Magic and Bird, or Jordan and Pippen, or like any other guy, any other duo seeing each other, facing each other for the last time, kind of taking that moment the way these two did. I can't. But that's also part of what makes them unique. And I will say this, it's not so much what they did on the court, it's what they did off of it. They've become businessmen. They've utilized their media reach, and they've done it with a friendship. And they've demonstrated, I don't even know, you can say that they competed against each other as friends. They showed that you can do both. I'm not sure I necessarily buy that. We're in a different realm today when it comes to the relationship between the great players. And I know all the old school guys say we would have never done it this way. My theory, my firm belief is that, oh yeah, you would have. You grew up in a different era. Bird, Magic, Jordan, they grew up at a time where there was no AAU circuit. You tried to win a championship, state championship with your high school, because if you were an NBA star, you had the requisite talent, you should be able to do that. You probably, as all three, went to college in your state, and then you played for the team that drafted you. You never thought about it. Free agency wasn't, the whole mindset was different. You didn't look for the best team or the best situation. You stayed, you found the best that you could within your geographic area, because that's how it was done for the most part. And then you stayed with your pro team. You were already conditioned to stay where you were. And you didn't develop friendships. And if there's anything that tells a lie to the idea that those players in today's world wouldn't be doing the same things that today's players are doing, it's one, how the relationship between Bird and Magic changed after they did their Converse commercial in Indiana, in French Lick. And all of the Celtics and Lakers players the following season were wondering, hey, why are you're chummy with that's the enemy. Like, what's up? Like, they questioned how that relationship had changed because they'd spent some time together off the court. Same with the 92 Dream Team and the way those guys all became boys after the fact. Now, most of them were at a point where they weren't playing for championships anymore. They weren't competing with Jordan. Jordan was really the only one still in that realm. I guess Carl was in it too. Carl and John Stockton. But the relationships between those guys changed. And that was just one trip. Players coming into the league today, they've been seeing each other. They've been hanging out in hotels. They've been texting each other. They've been interacting socially and at tournaments and various places, hanging out in hotels, hotel pools, whatnot. They've been doing that since they were 13, 14 years old. They've grown up as friends around each other. You can't convince me that if Magic and Bird and Jordan had been introduced to the game the way these guys have been, that they wouldn't be doing the exact same thing. All right, so I was able to get all that off my chest. Next week we will, unless something dramatic happens, we'll get back to the usual format of having a guest. I'm not sure who that is. I got a number of people lined up that I think you're going to enjoy. But in the meantime, remember, you can follow me. You can see my stuff at Bleacher Report. You can follow me on Twitter, at Rick Bucher. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram, at Bucher Friends. And tomorrow, I will be joined by Ryan Hollins once again. I'll get his take on the Chicago situation, because there are some veterans out there who have suggested that the players were out of line in complaining. They agreed with the New York Times that the young players had no place in saying, hey, we don't know about this 2.5-hour practice the day after a back-to-back. I don't care how badly we lost the night before. I'll discuss that with Ryan, along with the Houston Rockets. Are we seeing signs of life? Can they get back into the mix? And is there one of those teams that was in the playoff mix last year that's at the bottom of the standings right now that we don't think is going to make it all the way back? All of that tomorrow. In the meantime, thanks for listening.